Have you ever had a situation where you were asked a question and you had the answer kind of at the tip of your tongue, but somehow it wouldn't just come out? Hi, everyone. I am Rosh, and in this channel, I am going to share with you insights and tips and techniques on how we can better respond to situations, to events, and even to people. In this video, I'm going to share with you 5 tips on how you can handle any impromptu curveball question because, it is going to happen, right? And it could be at a time when you least expect it, or maybe it's even at times when you do expect it. For example, it could be at a meeting when your boss asks you for an update when it wasn't even your turn to share anything. Or it could even be after a presentation when you're asked a question by one of those senior leaders. Or maybe it could be a time when you have to fill in for someone at the last minute because they have been taken ill. So it's something that's really unexpected. And you are not going to have time to prepare your notes. You're not going to have time to prepare slides. You can't even take your time really with your response. And if you're not able to, take these moments and answer in a clear and concise and elegant way, this could affect your credibility. It could affect how people see you and perceive you. It could actually affect your branding. So, there is a saying that luck happens when preparation and opportunity meet. So let's get to it. Let me share with you my 5 tips on what you can do in situations like this. Now, before I share with you my tips, I want you to know why this happens. And it has a lot to do with this old part of our brain called the amygdala. So here's the thing. This part of the brain is the one that gets us flying off or freezing or fighting back. And the reason why we needed this part of the brain when we were running away from saber-toothed tigers is that it was there to protect us. The problem is right now, we don't have to run away from saber-toothed tigers, but anytime the body is stressed and the brain perceives a threat, and sometimes getting these impromptu questions from people who might be coming across as assertive or aggressive, that can be seen as a threat, or our senses, go into threat mode, right? So that's the reason why we react. And the good news, though, is that the thinking brain, the part of the brain that is newer, the prefrontal cortex, it does get back into gear after a little bit of time. How much time? I will share with you in a moment. So let me begin with that first step, right? The first tip I have for you, which is to breathe. When we are in a panic state, we tend to not breathe very well. Our breaths tend to be shallower and when it should really be deep into our diaphragm. We need to be breathing to make sure that, that oxygen is going to the brain because we sure as hell need our thinking ability. So when our breathing patterns change and, get shallower, the important thing is to remember to breathe, right? Now, there are many techniques that you can use. Now, before you go into these anxiety inducing moments like a presentation, you can do something called the square or box breathing technique. I love this technique. You can look it up. But this is something you could do before a presentation. But when you are asked a question suddenly, what do you do? Well, pause, breathe, then speak. Which brings me to my second tip. So, for my second tip, buy time. So, how do you buy time? If you watch my video about Barack Obama and how he answered the young boy, you will notice that he did a little bit of banter with the young boy and built some rapport with the young man. But you can do things like paraphrase the question, maybe ask the person for a little bit more data, a little bit more details, maybe an example, or maybe even simply asking them to repeat a question. Anything you can do to just buy yourself 6 seconds is a good way of managing that react mode that we tend to go into. Now, why do I say 6 seconds? Because that's how long it takes for your prefrontal cortex to get back into thinking mode. Now, let me tell you what we trainers like to do. So, one of the things that you may have noticed some people do is that when they get thrown a question, they buy time by throwing it back to the audience, right? So when they throw it back to the audience, it means that they get the person. So what do you think? That's a great question. What do you think? When people, start answering, you're able to gather your thoughts, and then you can just throw in your pearl of wisdom right at the end. And it feels that, wow, that trainer is really super smart. But I mean, you can, use some of these strategies to help you buy time. Now, by the way, I am going to prepare a PDF for you that you can download in the comments section. And this is going to give you just some of these tips in a very easy to look at one pager that you can just put up anywhere at your workstations. And you can even share it with friends, which brings me to my third tip. Now, the third tip is about trust. And who do you need to trust? Trust in yourself. Trust in the fact that you actually know this stuff. You've got this. And the thing is that most of the time, we actually have all the information that we need, but we tell ourselves things like, oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, I'm not clever enough. Oh, this person is out to get me. So if we're feeding our brain with a lot of negative self-talk because someone is asking us a question, then, it's going to set us up for failure. So set yourself up for success by having that belief that you do know the answer, that the person is not out to get you. So, give yourself some positive self-talk by saying to yourself, I've got this, I know this, the person just wants data. I'm the right person to give them the information they need. And just by giving yourself a little bit of a self-talk, of positive self-talk, that's going to set you up for success. So trust that you know your stuff. By the way, if you are enjoying some of the tips that I'm giving you, be sure to like and subscribe and share this video with friends that you think may be able to benefit from what I'm sharing. So let me now go to my fourth tip, which is to use simple structures. If you watch and listen to some of the best speakers out there, whenever they are asked a question, they rely on a few things, right? They do the banter, they build that rapport. They have, we call this bridging, in our line of work. But then they go into very simple structures. Now, they may not actually say it out as a structure, but they are. So one of the simple structures I like to use is the chronological structure, which could be a step 1, 2, 3, formally, right now, in the future, before, during, after. It's a chronological sense of action. The other one is the PSA or the PSB. So that's the problem, solution, action steps, or it could be problem, solution, benefits. It's a very simple structure that a lot of people use in their presentations. There is the what it is, so what now structure that is a really good one to use. But one of my favorites is to actually use questions as a way of giving my response to an impromptu question. So I might say something like, I'm glad you asked me that question. So allow me to share with you who is responsible, when we're going to start, and how we're going to roll it out. Okay, so it's basically using the who, what, where, when, why, or how, and using that as the starter to a point that you're going to make. Now, you may already have guessed where my fifth tip is going to be, and that's around how many points you should have. And we like to use the rule of threes. Now, I know I've got 5 points today, but, give, 3, 5, give or take, one or two more, that's fine. But the brain has a way of being able to contain information, in bite size. And, if we give people too much, then, it might be overwhelming and they might regret asking us the question because we're just going on and on and on and rambling, right? So what we want to do is to be able to keep it concise, to keep it clear. So the clarity comes from the structure. The conciseness is making sure you only stick with 3 points. And when you do that, you have a wonderful way of responding to questions in an impromptu situation. So there it is, my 5 tips on what you can do, what to keep in mind as you go through situations. When you get asked a question, you know it's going to happen sooner or later. Someone's going to tap you on the shoulder, or it's going to happen at a meeting or maybe at a presentation. Do download the PDF that I have put in the comment section, and do remember to like and subscribe to the channel. I am bringing videos to you every week, whenever I can. The maximum time you have to wait for a video is 10 days, but I am going to make sure that I am here for you. And if you ever need to reach out to me, feel free to contact me at the email that you see below. So remember, folks, go out there and remember, reactions only cause divisions. So being able to respond well and to build our ability to respond, that's our responsibility. See you next week.